The morning at Reagan National Airport had begun like any other. The sun filtered gently through the glass terminal, bathing the bustling crowd in a warm, golden light. Passengers wheeled their suitcases through security lines. Flight crews sipped coffee while reviewing manifests, and overhead announcements echoed softly throughout the concourse. Everything was routine, until it wasn't. On runway 3, Flight BR-207, a Boeing 787 en route to San Francisco, was minutes from departure. Captain Owen Palmer, a seasoned pilot with silver hair and the steady calm of a man who'd seen it all in his 30 years of flying, had completed the final checks in the cockpit. "Clear skies all the way west," his co-pilot had said. Passengers were boarding, luggage was secured, and ground crews were beginning to pull away. Then, without warning, a German Shepherd broke into the open runway. A police K-9 named Rex, darting across the tarmac with purpose in his every stride. His handler, Officer Henry Walsh, shouted commands from behind, but Rex didn't stop. Instead, the dog planted himself squarely in front of the plane's nose gear, standing rigid, unblinking, his body tense with warning. The engines, humming softly as they prepared for taxi, now idled in confusion. In the cockpit, Captain Palmer narrowed his eyes. "Control, we have a situation. K-9 unit is blocking our path." On the ground, chaos began to ripple. The flight was on schedule, the weather perfect, and yet this one dog, was bringing everything to a halt. "Rex, heel!" Walsh's voice rang out again, louder this time. But the shepherd didn't budge. Instead, a low growl began to rumble from deep in his chest, his gaze fixed on the aircraft's cargo hold. Palmer watched from above, his instincts twitching. Something wasn't right. In all his years, he'd never seen a trained K-9 ignore protocol like this. Behind him, his co-pilot muttered, "What does he know that we don't?" The tension grew thick in the air. The delay was costing thousands by the minute. Ground control urged movement. But Officer Walsh, breathless and certain, finally said just 5 words that chilled the captain to the bone. "Sir, we need to stop everything." Officer Henry Walsh stood on the tarmac, breathing hard, heart pounding in sync with the adrenaline rushing through his veins. His partner, Rex, remained locked in a defensive stance, still growling low and steady. The German Shepherd's body language was clear. He had sensed something serious. And Henry, after nearly a decade in K-9 operations, had learned one sacred truth: you never ignore the dog. "Get that dog out of there!" a supervisor barked through the radio, urgency climbing in his voice. A swarm of ground crew began to form, some shouting over the jet's idle hum, others staring in disbelief. The scene was spiraling fast, but Henry didn't move. Instead, he took a single step forward, raised his hand, and said firmly, "Rex has detected something in the cargo hold. I'm requesting a full stop on this aircraft until we inspect it." The silence that followed was deafening. Captain Owen Palmer, still watching from the cockpit, turned to his co-pilot. "He's not backing down." "No, sir," she said quietly, "and that dog doesn't look like he's bluffing." From below, the ground supervisor stormed over. "Officer Walsh, you're interfering with a federal flight. Do you have any evidence to justify this delay?" Henry met his eyes, steady and unshaken. "The evidence is right in front of you. I've trusted this dog with my life in combat zones. If he says something's wrong, then something is wrong." Tension crackled through the air. Passengers inside the plane began to shift uncomfortably in their seats, unaware of the storm brewing outside. In the terminal, the airport's security director, Dana Whitmore, had just been alerted. She was on her way. Meanwhile, Rex remained motionless, his eyes fixed like lasers on the forward section of the cargo bay. Henry's radio buzzed again. "Do you copy, Officer Walsh? Orders are to clear the dog, now." He pressed the button slowly, deliberately. "Negative," he said. "I will not move until this aircraft is searched. If I'm wrong, I'll answer for it. But if I'm right, and we let this plane take off, we may not get a second chance." The decision had been made. One man and one dog had drawn the line. And as security forces converged and the aircraft's engines shut down, no one yet realized they were about to uncover something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The cargo bay hissed as the hydraulics released and the heavy metal door slowly opened. A wave of cold, sterile air poured out from within, along with the faint scent of plastic, fuel, and something else. Something Rex had detected long before anyone else even suspected trouble. Officer Henry Walsh tightened his grip on the leash, though Rex didn't need any prompting. The German Shepherd lunged forward with a single, determined bark, his nose sweeping low to the ground, moving quickly toward a specific corner of the hold. "Easy, boy," Henry muttered, heart pounding as he followed close behind. Around them, a full security team had assembled. Bomb techs, federal agents, airport officials, all holding their breath as if the air itself had turned heavy. The team began checking each container methodically. Luggage, perishable items, some crates of electronic equipment, all logged, all matching the manifest. But Rex ignored them all, heading straight to a large steel container marked "Sensitive Electronics, handle with care." "This one," Henry said, pointing. "Open it." The technician hesitated. "It's been cleared. Scanned 3 times already." "Then scan it a 4th time," Henry replied coldly, "and open it." With mounting tension, the team broke the seal and carefully unlatched the reinforced locks. The lid creaked open to reveal rows of neatly packed devices, nothing overtly dangerous. It looked like a standard shipment of high-end processors. But as the team began removing the outer layers, Rex's intensity grew. He began pawing at the bottom panel, whining and growling, his body vibrating with urgency. "There's something else in here," Henry said sharply. One of the agents slid a tool beneath the base of the container. A soft click echoed, and a hidden compartment popped loose, one that wasn't listed on any manifest or visible on any X-ray scan. Inside was a sleek, unmarked black case. No labels, no documentation. The room went still. Using specialized sensors, the bomb techs examined the case without opening it. One of them looked up, face pale. "This isn't standard cargo," he said. "It's a device. Sophisticated, shielded, and it's designed to be invisible to scanners." Captain Palmer, now watching from the edge of the cargo bay, exhaled slowly. Good God, what were we about to fly across the country? No one had an answer. But one thing was certain, the dog had known, long before anyone else. The black case sat in the center of the cargo bay, surrounded by men and women trained to face the worst. But even they couldn't disguise the unease in their eyes. The bomb squad had ruled out explosives. What they found instead was far more disturbing. Inside the sleek shell was a compact, high-frequency neural interface system, technology designed not for destruction, but for control. Henry Walsh stared at the exposed device, his jaw clenched. This shouldn't be here, not on a commercial flight, not anywhere near civilians. A Homeland Security technician stepped forward, holding a tablet with preliminary scan results. "This is prototype grade," she said. "Military-class architecture, possibly experimental surveillance tech. No serial numbers, no shipment ID, just ghost cargo." Captain Palmer had joined them at the edge of the cargo ramp, his face pale. "So you're telling me we almost flew 200 people across the country with this in the hold?" "Worse," the agent replied. "We've run it through every manifest and shipping log. It doesn't exist." The air turned colder. It didn't take long before someone started asking the hard questions. Who authorized the shipment? Why wasn't it flagged? And how had it passed through multiple layers of federal security without so much as a red flag? Within hours, the truth began to unravel. The shipment had been arranged by Orion Tech Solutions, a major government contractor specializing in defense and surveillance technologies. On the surface, the company had an impeccable reputation. State-of-the-art facilities, defense contracts, glossy press releases about cybersecurity. But beneath the corporate sheen was something far more insidious. A covert operation to smuggle advanced surveillance systems across the country, hidden inside legitimate cargo using specially designed containers that could bypass standard scanning technologies. And this wasn't the first shipment. Investigators uncovered a trail. Similar flights, similar manifests, all cleared through security by trusted personnel, some of whom were now missing, others under quiet internal review. Someone had built a network. Someone had designed a system where danger could fly first class, and no one would ever know. All of it had slipped through until Rex stopped one plane. Henry glanced down at his partner, who now sat calmly by his side, mission complete. "You just blew the lid off something huge, didn't you?" he murmured. Rex didn't reply, but his eyes, focused and steady, said everything. The airport was still reeling from the discovery, but beneath the surface of official statements and carefully worded press releases, something deeper had begun to take shape. 3 people, Each from different walks of life, each with nothing in common, found themselves drawn together by one simple, inescapable truth. What had been found on Flight BR-207 was no accident. Captain Owen Palmer sat alone in a dim corner of the terminal coffee shop, nursing a cup of black coffee that had long gone cold. His eyes were fixed on the tarmac beyond the window, but his mind was still trapped in the cargo hold, staring at that unmarked case. In all his years in the cockpit, he had never felt so blindsided. That plane had been his responsibility. Those passengers, his to protect. And something about the way this was being swept aside didn't sit right with him. Across town, Officer Henry Walsh was typing up his incident report. But the words didn't come easily. Rex lay quietly beside his desk, ears perked, sensing the unease in his partner. Henry had served 2 tours overseas. He'd seen deception before. And this felt calculated, controlled. The fact that they were already being told to stand down on further questions was all the proof he needed. Someone wanted this buried. Meanwhile, investigative journalist Eliza Monroe stared at the blinking cursor on her laptop. The official airport statement had arrived in her inbox just minutes ago. Out of an abundance of caution, a flight was delayed due to a routine security concern. Routine? Her instincts screamed otherwise. She had seen the photos. She'd spoken to a technician who risked his job to tell her what he saw, and now she needed confirmation. A name had appeared in every whispered conversation: Henry Walsh. By the end of the day, Eliza had tracked him down. They met in a quiet parking lot, the kind where secrets stay secret. Henry arrived first, Rex in tow. Then Captain Palmer pulled in, still wearing his uniform, jaw tight with purpose. Eliza joined them moments later, voice calm but eyes fierce. They didn't trust easily, but something in the air between them felt aligned, like 3 puzzle pieces snapping into place. "This goes higher than we think," Eliza said quietly. "And deeper," Palmer added. Henry simply nodded. "Then we find out how far it goes." And so, the unlikely alliance was born. 3 strangers, united by instinct, integrity, and one undeniable need to uncover the truth before someone silenced it forever. The deeper they looked, the more dangerous it became. Only 48 hours had passed since the mysterious device was uncovered, but already the pressure was mounting. Phone calls stopped being returned, emails vanished without explanation, and the few contacts who had initially offered off-the-record insight were suddenly silent or scared. At his apartment, Henry Walsh stared at the notice in his inbox. A request to transfer Rex to a new handler for participation in a high-level federal initiative. No details, no justification, just a line at the bottom. Effective immediately. His gut twisted. Rex wasn't just a dog. He was Henry's partner, trained to work with no one else. This wasn't a promotion. It was an attempt to separate them, to control the only living being who had truly seen through the smokescreen. Across the country, Captain Owen Palmer received word that his flight assignments had been altered. He was reassigned to international routes with no explanation. "It's protocol," his supervisor told him. But Owen had flown with the airline for over 25 years. Protocol didn't work like that. The timing was too precise, too convenient. He stared at the new schedule on his phone, jaw clenched. They were moving him off the radar. Meanwhile, Eliza Monroe's editor at the Tribune had begun to push back hard. "This isn't a story, Eliza," he insisted. "There's no official report, no names, no confirmation. You're chasing shadows." But Eliza wasn't chasing shadows. She was chasing a pattern, and it was starting to make people uncomfortable. She returned to her desk to find her credentials deactivated. Her access to internal databases? Gone. A temporary system error, IT told her. They were being isolated, methodically and quietly, each step calculated to strip them of resources, support, and visibility. That night, the 3 met in a parking garage beneath a federal office building. It was raining. Owen leaned against the hood of his car, arms crossed. Eliza checked over her shoulder every few minutes. Henry stood with Rex at his side, the dog's ears twitching in the dim light. "They're not just covering this up," Eliza said. "They're dismantling us, one by one." Henry nodded. "Which means we're closer than they want us to be." Owen exhaled. "Then we push harder, before they shut the door for good." A quiet tension hung in the air as the trio stepped into the modest lab tucked away in the engineering wing of Georgetown University. Professor Arthur Bell, once a rising star in materials science, had been forced into academic exile after refusing to cooperate with the very corporation now at the center of the investigation, Orion Tech Solutions. His research had once held promise for military defense, but in the wrong hands, it had become a tool for secrecy and control. Now, he stood across from them, hesitant but determined, a man haunted by what he'd helped create. Henry Walsh watched as the professor opened a secure cabinet and carefully removed two identical-looking sheets of composite material. "This one is mine," Bell explained, laying the first on the lab table. "Pure, original, designed to block detection of communication signals in battlefield environments." He placed the second beside it. "And this is theirs. A modified version that not only hides what's inside, but actively mimics ordinary cargo. It doesn't just conceal, it deceives." Captain Owen Palmer stepped forward, examining the materials through the lab's scanner. "So what flew in my cargo bay wasn't just hidden, it was disguised," Bell nodded. "And worse, it's being used regularly. That package your dog found, it was just one of many. They're moving these systems through civilian flights to avoid scrutiny. One part here, another there. On paper, it all looks harmless." "And what are they building?" Eliza asked, her voice quiet but pointed. Bell hesitated, then turned to his computer. The components they're shipping match designs for a neural interface surveillance grid, one capable of remote monitoring of brain activity. In theory, it could be used for medical research, but in practice, it's a surveillance weapon. The weight of his words settled over the room like a thick fog. Eliza slowly closed her notebook. "Then this isn't just a story, it's a national security threat." Henry's eyes flicked to Rex, who sat motionless, as if absorbing the moment along with them, and all of it slipped through until one dog didn't let it. They weren't soldiers. They weren't spies. But at that moment, they realized they were the only line left between a powerful corporation and unchecked control, and they were ready to fight back. The morning sun cast a soft glow over Reagan National Airport as a small crowd gathered near the K-9 training facility. It wasn't a press event or a grand ceremony, just a quiet, meaningful gathering of people who knew what had really happened behind the scenes of Flight BR-207. At the center of it all stood Rex, the German shepherd whose instincts had unraveled a conspiracy so carefully hidden that even the most advanced technology had failed to detect it. Officer Henry Walsh knelt beside his partner, adjusting the newly polished collar that now bore a silver medallion engraved with the words "For unmatched service and unshakable loyalty." Rex remained still, his eyes alert, scanning the faces in the crowd. He didn't seem to understand the attention, but he sensed the reverence. He was trained to detect danger, not gratitude, but he deserved both. Nearby, Captain Owen Palmer watched the exchange with a mix of pride and awe. "That dog," he said quietly to Eliza Monroe, "did what an entire system of sensors, scanners, and security teams couldn't do. He listened to something deeper than protocol. He listened to instinct." Eliza nodded, notebook in hand, capturing every detail. Her article had already ignited public awareness. Orion Tech was now under federal investigation, several executives placed on administrative leave. The new scanning technology they had rushed into airports was halted pending review. But for Eliza, the real story was standing 4 feet tall on 4 steady legs. Rex hadn't just found a hidden device. He'd exposed a network of corruption, forced accountability, and reminded the world that loyalty and intuition still had a place in a world overrun by data. As Henry stood and gave a quiet command, Rex moved beside him without hesitation, ready for whatever came next. A TSA official approached with a final update. "The reassignment order has been revoked. Permanently. You two stay together, effective immediately." Henry offered a small, grateful smile. "We wouldn't have it any other way." As the group began to disperse, Owen, Eliza, and Henry exchanged one last look, an unspoken agreement that their work had made a difference. But it had all started with a moment most had overlooked. A single dog refusing to move because he knew something no one else did. And that instinct had changed everything. In the end, this wasn't just a story about a delayed flight or a hidden device smuggled through a cargo hold. It was about instinct, loyalty, and the extraordinary bond between a handler and his dog. While high-level officials and cutting-edge technology failed to detect what was right in front of them, one German shepherd, guided not by machines or politics, but by training and trust, saw through it all. Rex reminded us that even in a world dominated by artificial intelligence and sophisticated surveillance, nature still has a role to play. His actions prevented a potential crisis, saved countless lives, and unraveled a web of corruption that might have gone unnoticed for years. But more than that, he reminded us of something deeply human: the importance of listening, not just to data, but to each other, and to the animals that serve beside us. This story is a tribute to every working dog that silently protects us, from bomb sniffers and search and rescue heroes to therapy animals who comfort strangers in their darkest hours. They don't ask for recognition. They don't expect praise. They simply serve with heart, with courage, and with unshakable loyalty. So as we reflect on Rex's courage, let it be a reminder to all of us. Animals are not tools. They are living beings with emotions, intelligence, and purpose. We owe them more than commands. We owe them our respect, our care, and our protection. If this story moved you, let it inspire action. Adopt, don't shop. Support animal welfare. Speak out against cruelty. Because sometimes the truest heroes walk on four legs, and all they ask in return is a little love. Dưới đây là lời kêu gọi theo dõi và bình luận. Văn phong thân thiện, chân thành và phù hợp với người xem trưởng thành, yêu thích chủ đề Animal Rescue Story. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next episode. Each one brings you even more powerful and emotional animal rescue stories that will stay with you long after the video ends. And we'd love to hear from you. What did this story make you feel? Do you have your own experience with a heroic animal or an unforgettable bond with a pet? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts, feelings, or suggestions. Your voice matters, and it helps us bring better stories to life. Thank you for supporting the animals, their stories, and the people who never stop believing in them.